Hello, welcome back to the third part of valvular heart disease. In the earlier parts, we have seen difference between the two types of valvular heart disease, that is stenosis and regurgitation, and we have came across mitral valve disorders and also aortic stenosis. Now, in this lecture, we will proceed forward with aortic regurgitation. As known to you, regurgitation is sipping back of blood from the valve into the chamber where it is not supposed to go. That is, the blood here in this particular case is supposed to move from your left ventricle to the aorta. But, sorry, yeah. But in this case, what is happening is, as there is incomplete closure of aortic valve, incomplete closure of aortic valve will lead the blood back from aorta into the left ventricle. Let us see into the causes of aortic regurgitation. Again, they can be of congenital and acquired type. The congenital one is the one which is having malformation during their embryonic life. Also, uh, the acquired ones can be of the variations like rheumatic diseases as a result of rheumatic disease. It can also be due to infective endocarditis, trauma, aortic dilatation may also be seen, like in the cases of Marfan syndrome, aneurysm dissection, and as a part of the tertiary syphilis, causing complications in heart. Now, to understand the pathophysiology, now you need to look into this diagram. Kindly look at the right hand side of your screen. There's a black and white diagram of heart. Now follow the arrows there. As you can see, with the point number 1, the arrow indicating is the one which is the blood reversing back from the aorta into the left atrium. Now this blood is not supposed to come back into the ventricle, but as the valve is not closing properly, that will lead into regurgitation of blood into the left ventricle. Now, the preload of left ventricle increases as it receives blood from the left atrium, as well as some amount of blood is already present in the left ventricle as it regurgitated back from the aorta. So, the overall volume of blood that is present for the ventricle to pump increases. This increases the workload, and obviously this will cause dilatation as well as hypertrophy of left ventricle. And secondly, the other factor which contributes to the hypertrophy of left ventricle is decreased cardiac output, as the blood which is supposed to circulate in the aorta to the whole body, but a part of that blood is regurgitating back into the ventricle. So the cardiac output eventually will reduce, and that reduction will lead into increased heart rate and increased pressure of contraction uh, produced from the left ventricle, which leads into ventricular hypertrophy. So let us understand what happens here. So incomplete closure of aortic valve will lead into backflow of blood to the left ventricle, which will have two consequences, that is left ventricular hypertrophy and dilatation, which in turn will lead into left-sided heart failure in later stages, and eventually lowered cardiac output can be seen. Whereas as there is backflow of blood in the left ventricle, uh, the next step would be that the right atrial pressure will increase, which will lead into left atrial hypertrophy, which in turn will increase the pulmonary pressure, and that will lead into right-sided heart failure. And we have seen this sequence how this goes. So the clinical feature, usually they are asymptomatic, but awareness of heartbeat, that is palpitation, is one of the key features that gives you an idea that something is wrong with the valve. If there are the severeness of this regurgitation is on a higher side, then breathlessness and angina can also be experienced. There are some signs which will help you know it. Almost all signs are related to the type of sounds produced. Large volume of collapsing pulse, low diastolic and increased pulse pressure. So the difference in the systole and the diastole would be increased. Bounding peripheral pulse, that is a radial pulse, would be felt as a bounding pulse. Capillary pulsation in nail bed, that is Quincke's sign. Femoral roots, pistol shot, Urosi's sign. Head nodding with pulse, Demoset's sign. Murmurs, early diastolic murmur can be heard because as the ventricles will undergo diastole, and that would be the time when the blood from aorta would be regurgitating back in the ventricles. So early diastolic murmur is a systolic murmur, and this is due to increased stroke volume. An Austin Flint murmur, that is soft mixed systolic murmur, as now, this characteristic Austin Flint murmur is characteristic murmur. It is best heard in the left sternum during held expiration. Investigations, again, we have all those sets of investigation in order to understand the hypertrophy, that is echo and Doppler will tell us about the filling, defilling of the chambers and also about the enlarged state of the heart. But it is the ECG which tells us exactly which valvular heart disease we are facing. So in this particular case, we have a T wave inversion. The T wave will move in an opposite direction. So it gives an indication that there is aortic regurgitation. Management again is related to uh, replacement of the valve. Also looking back into such evidences afterwards, that is how the ventricular size is changing and how the heart is responding about such surgeries. Next in series is tricuspid stenosis, that is valve present between the right atrium and right ventricle. Usually this occurs together with aortic or mitral stenosis. So the solitude presence tricuspid stenosis is rare. So it might be accompanying aortic and mitral stenosis. This may also be due to rheumatic heart disease that causes. But what happens here is blood flow from right atrium to right ventricle, and there is increased right ventricular output, and there is what that causes is left ventricular filling would be affected, and there would be a decrease in the systemic pressure as the cardiac output decreases. So let me get you this thing again. What happens here is, as this is stenosis, so the valve won't open completely. So that will lead into incomplete emptying of blood into the right ventricle. So there is decreased blood flow, which in turn will decrease the output of right ventricle, which in turn will decrease the output or the blood coming to the left side of the heart, which in turn will again reduce the cardiac output, and the systemic pressure is also reduced as the cardiac output is getting less. The uh, symptoms of right-sided heart failure can be seen hepatomegaly or blood vessels coming from those major organs directly to the right side of the heart. All those organs would be affected. Hepatomegaly, ascites, peripheral edema, neck vein engorgement. Also, fatigue and hypotension is also seen. Now, this it is quite understood that why fatigue is present. This fatigue is present due to reduced cardiac output, and hypotension is also there present as cardiac output is less. Some signs like mid-diastolic murmur, which is best heard at the lower left or right sternal angle, and raised jugular venous pressure is also a sign. Now, on the management part, valve replacement, valvulotomy, and balloon valvuloplasty is also an option. So these are management, so we need not go into the details of this. You'll be seeing this management later in the practice of medicine part. Next is tricuspid regurgitation, that is incomplete closure of tricuspid valve. This type of regurgitation is most frequently functional as a result of enlargement of right ventricle. So rather than the defect in the valve, it is more of a functional type of disorder where the valve is having no problem. But as there is enlargement in the right ventricle, this enlargement will create extra pressure on the valve, and this will cause the valve to function inappropriately. An insufficient tricuspid valve allow blood to flow back into the right atrium, which causes venous congestion, and right ventricular output will reduce, and which causes blood flow toward the less blood will flow towards the lungs. So it's quite understood. Whatever amount of blood that was required to be pumped to the lungs from the right ventricle, a part of it is going back into the right atrium, where right atrium was receiving blood from the major veins of our body. So the venous pressure will increase there, but the forward pressure, that was the pressure that was supposed to be created in the blood for reaching till the lungs and getting oxygenated, that pressure is decreasing. The causes are obviously the one rheumatic heart disease, endocarditis, abstinent congenital anomaly, also pulmonary hypertension, that is also known as the cor pulmonale, right ventricular infraction. So, as a part of myocardial infarction, if this particular region is getting affected, then this might be the secondary reason or a secondary manifestation of myocardial infarction, that is tricuspid regurgitation. Right ventricular dilatation due to chronic left heart failure is also seen. So, symptoms usually non-specific: tiredness, edema, and hepatic enlargement. So edema and hepatic enlargement, we can give this credit to the venous congestion caused by increased pressure in the right atrium. Whereas the signs of raised jugular venous pressure, when we have pansystolic murmur, that is murmur would be heard throughout the systole. It's not in the start of the systole, end of the systole, or mid of the systole. Rather, it is pansystolic. Means throughout the systole, you will hear the murmur. And pulsatile liver. So you can have you can feel the pulsations in the hepatic vein. So that is the reason they have saying pulsatile liver is present. Management can be done uh, by checking the causes of right ventricular overload. Diuretics can be given to reduce the venous pressure. Valve repair and replacement is the obvious solution. Then comes pulmonary stenosis. Pulmonary valve is usually present between the right ventricle and pulmonary artery. Sorry, vein. Artery, pulmonary vein. From right ventricle to pulmonary artery. Pulmonary stenosis, how do we define or what are the symptoms do we have? Fatigue, dyspnea, exertion, cyanosis, poor weight gain, and failure to thrive in infants, hepatomegaly, ascites, and edema. So some signs are of ejection systolic murmur, murmur often preceded by ejection sound, maybe wide splitting of second heart sound, delay in the ventricular ejection is the reason, and maybe a thrill. That's felt when the patient leans forward and breathes out. So, see, what is happening in this pulmonary stenosis is the valve is not completely open. So, due to that, when the blood would be ejected out of the right ventricle, not all the blood would be able to skip into the pulmonary artery. So, what will happen is that a part of blood remains in the right ventricle, and obviously the output, that is a pulmonary output or the blood that is supposed to reach the lungs, is getting reduced. This will have a two part impact. If the blood returning to the going to the lungs get reduced, so obviously the cardiac output will eventually reduce, and symptoms like fatigue, dyspnea, and exertion are occurring. And if there is some remaining blood in the right ventricle, which obviously will cause right ventricular hypertrophy, which in turn will cause right atrial hypertrophy, and that will eventually cause increase in the venous pressure or the venous congestion. So we have symptoms like ascites, edema, and hepatomegaly. Investigations, uh, again ECG, X-ray, Doppler, cardiac catheterization can also be done in such cases. Management is balloon valvulopathy or surgical valvulotomy is usually done. In mild and moderate cases, usually they don't progress and not require much of a treatment. Now, it's the last pulmonary regurgitation. Is a very rare condition, usually associated with pulmonary hypertension, which may be secondary to a disease of the left side of heart, primary pulmonary vascular diseases, and Eisenmenger syndrome. If you do remember what is Eisenmenger syndrome, it's a part of congenital heart disease. I leave it to you to recall it, that what is Eisenmenger syndrome. Blood flows back into the right ventricle, and which causes right ventricular and atrium hypertrophy, and symptoms of right heart side failure can be seen. So trival pulmonary regurgitation is frequently finding in normal individual and has no clinical significance. Suppose if we find this thing, they don't have any clinical significance. Thank you. That was all about the valvular heart disease. So after this discussion, we have come to the conclusion that the more prominent ones are the mitral and the aortic valves, which are more frequently affected, and any disorder like stenosis or regurgitation of mitral and aortic are the major clinical patients that we see, and the right-sided valves are not frequently found. Thank you.